last year, in 2025, I was on parental leave with my second child, as I have already mentioned in the last episode. And this kind of a time when I'm so immersed into just that home life, family life, actually has proven the most challenging for me, and that's where most of my kind of shadow behaviors come up. There's a lot of pressure also with motherhood, maybe being like this, I want to be a good mother, and what's that then, and how do aspects of me fit into that and not, and into that narrative or persona. And the one thing that actually this time around really supported me in this process was that I decided to look into something that's called the Gene Keys, which is based on human design in the way that it's structured, but the approach of it, I would say, is quite different. It's almost like if we have human design as this polar side of a energy that's focused on getting information into your head, something to counteract maybe the way you have structured your personality based on the societal norms. You get a counter narrative or a counter image of, oh, maybe you can think of it this way or feel into yourself, but it's still a lot of it is very focused on the mental realm of getting the mind to get new information to connect to, or new ways of thinking about things. And in contrast to that, what I experienced with the Gene Keys was that it was a lot to do with unlearning, with stripping away all of the information we have gathered, or what we think of as knowledge about ourselves, about life, about the world overall. And it had a lot to do with pausing, creating space for feeling into your life, for immersing into your life exactly as it shows up right now. And it was urging to, instead of try to fill the head with even more information, it's a lot about landing into yourself in a way where you don't need to add information. Maybe you need to release old stories or personas, shake off like these behaviors that have come from fear or survival modes. And in my realization of how much parental leave did kick me into states of survival mode, when you have a screaming baby or a child with a tantrum, the nervous system, at least for me, for probably many people, does get quite stressed. And how to exist in that situation, how to work with what comes up, what is triggered in me, how to. I felt pretty shocked by all of those things that came up in my parental leave periods, and then what I got through the Gene Keys was incredibly supportive and comforting in, oh, I don't need to be perfect from the start. I don't need to be able to do something I'm not able to do. I can pause and observe and learn, and I can treat these shadows as a gift that can show me sides of myself when I just have the perspective that I can pause into it. And that's where that whole approach of, that's very central to the Gene Keys, which is the art of contemplation, was a real treasure for me during this year. And when you're in a time period such as being a parent or having a lot of stress from work or whatever it is, it can be very overwhelming when you want to also do self-development and look into things and learn different perspectives. It's so easy to feel like I don't have enough time to take in and learn and all this knowledge, information. And then just meeting something like the Gene Keys felt like such a relief for me, where it's continuously urged you're encouraged to take it at your own pace and to just, you're on a journey, and that's life overall as well. And it's a process of unfolding that will happen on its own time, and it's actually not about rushing ahead and having to do things fast. That's actually less of an effective stance when it's about these themes of going deeper into your life or learning about your shadows. It's a more effective way of doing that is to try to practice at becoming soft and to actually really open up to it and to go deep into it and feel into it and understand, not with just the mind but with something deeper, or with the emotional levels and the embodied levels, or what you want to call it. So for me, who has been existing so much just in the mind, there was a feeling that human design also, in a way, kept me stuck there more easily. There's a risk of that, while that's not like the point of that whole framework or the intention or purpose behind it. There's so much information, there's so much to go into. It's really easy to get kind of lost in the woods of all of those things. And then in the Gene Keys, that there's also a lot of information that you can get lost in, but there's also this encouragement that you don't actually have to know anything. You know what you need to know from just living your life, and you have your answers. And this is just a framework that provides you a possible pathway that you can take towards going deeper into what your experience is. So, for some more practical information, it's structured in a way of different courses that you can take. So Gene Keys is very kind of self-directed. It's more, maybe I would say it's easier to get into it if you are a person who, well, I don't know, I don't maybe necessarily think it's, you can still find your way into it if you're more extroverted or want to have a communal, because they provide opportunities to do those things. And there are guides that create spaces for that. So there's a way of doing that. But for me, as a person who is more happy just sitting on my own and delving deep into courses and learning just on my own time, it was very supportive for me the way I am. So it started out with like this course of you look on a website, listen to audios or meditations, read some information, or rather stories, because it's more of a poetic language in the Gene Keys, storytelling that connects to, is a synthesis of so many things, so many perspectives that so beautifully weaved together, and then all of those you can kind of connect back to from your own life, and whatever happens to feel highlighted at the moment is what you then focus on. And there's like this kind of openness of coming at it from different directions. So when I did this first free kind of 3-day course, I think it was, that's for free, that you can just try out, that already opened up such a deep well of just a shift in the way I would experience these triggering events, or when shadow stuff came up to the surface, because it opened up this possibility that I don't have to be angry at myself for becoming angry, which creates an impossible loop in that situation. Instead, I could pause and learn from that and go deeper into what is this anger about. And maybe I don't even need to know, maybe I can just feel it, and over time it will kind of land somewhere or reveal itself. And that has been the case, though it's a work in progress, of course. And So I decided that for 2025, my parental leave period, I would go through that journey in my own time, because in parental leave, there are some moments when you can listen to something in the evening when a baby is sleeping, then I can read something, and other times I have no time, or I have time, but it's that time goes to other things. And another reason for taking that journey or starting that journey was that I noticed a tendency that when there's just these small scattered moments of, oh, now there's 10 minutes here or there, it's easy to grab the phone and then start scrolling, and like mindlessly doing things that in the end of it, you feel kind of unfulfilled, and you feel like, why did I spend those 10 minutes on that? But I'm also too exhausted to be able to really think of what to do or where to attach my attention. And then it just happens to be that first thing that, oh, I have a notification that pops up and I go there. And in contrast to that, I realized that when I got this course of the Gene Keys, I gave myself an alternative. I was like, oh, I have a bit of a moment, I'll go and check on that website or that course, and then read a bit about some way I can connect into myself. And that alternative, then it created a very different behavior loop in this time period, where I wouldn't do as much scrolling. I would just intentionally allow myself to disconnect or detach from that whole realm of social media for a while, because I was in this in-between space of not needing to be part of that world, but being very part of my home world or my own life. And in that way, that courses, the activation sequence, the Venus sequence, the Pearl, I did the whole Golden Path, which is it's called, during 2025. But it also flowed very naturally in its own way. There was some times when I needed to take a pause for a month when I did the Venus sequence, because there was so much coming up. That one is about going very deep into your relationships. And of course, this theme was active for me when I was with my children, which brings also stuff about my own childhood, noticing some behaviors that come up. Oh, I remember when my own parents did that. Oh, why am I doing, do I want to do that as well? Or, but so that was a very fascinating process, and also how these little bits and pieces build up over time, and then something deeper is unfolding. And that process was excruciating and intense at times, and so meaningful. And that's why I took my time and had that like month-long pause, because there was a lot of stuff to process or feel into and observe over time. And then when I felt like, okay, now I landed with this understanding, now this has kind of started to settle in my life, then I would move on to the next sphere, or gene key as it is. So as is my way, this is a rambling description again that will go a bit here, a bit there. So I'll also try to add a bit of the structure, or for people who are not into or don't know about this, then maybe it can be helpful to have at least something. So with the gene keys, it's kind of focused on different qualities, you could say, or different energies. So it gives you a profile that's describing energies of your life, or your way of being or moving through this life, that you can then relate to and experience or experiment with in your own life. The whole point of it is not to tell you like, you're like this and that's how it is. It's more like, feel into it and what does it open up in you. And it affords the openness because it has structured these different energies or qualities into 3 words, which is the shadow, the gift, and the siddhi. And the shadow is basically how that energy shows up on the lower or shadow frequency of when you get triggered or you're coming from a survival state. And then the gift frequency is when you're able to learn from that shadow, then that opens up a gift of ability or a special kind of energy that you can bring because you have that power or the strength that actually is built up from the seed of the shadow. So they're intertwined in that way, which I found very beautiful. And then from the gift, the Siddhi, which I see as a kind of transcendental frequency, or the one that holds it all, the way that we are all energies that are connected to something, the all, or in my view, source, then that highest frequency is like something that just is, that holds both the gift and shadow frequency and can really transcend them, which is a bit hard to describe, but I'll give an example. So I have the 45th key as my life's work. So these different qualities or different energies have different placements and descriptions. For me, the life's work is about how you bring your energy out to the world and a part of and sharing, or you shine your light outwards and it affects others. It's more outward facing because that's connected to this placement of the sun. Here it's like where it goes, the mechanics goes a bit into human design and into based on astrology, where the placements of the different planets are what give you the different keys or energies. So that's at the foundation of it. So if I stay with this example before going into the mechanics, my 45th key is in the shadow, it's domination. It's kind of this control freak energy. It's how I see it, or this fear of becoming controlled or dominated by others. So I'm the one who has to take charge. I have to be in control. That's that energy. I have to be able to decide exactly how things go and like how we do things. But on the gift frequency, a synergy can be created. So there I have to somehow shift that need to dominate into being able to see that all of us can bring something together. But the way I see the shift from shadow to gift is not that you totally annihilate the shadow, like, oh, it shouldn't exist and push it away. It's more like I can see the energy, the strength in that domination tendency. And I can just do a little shift where I can use my power to empower others, where I can use the power to, instead of pushing on and dominating or trying to control something, I can use that power to maybe organize, but organize in a way that creates an open space for people to bring their own to the whole. And in that way, that energy of the shadow is also used, but just channeled or used in a different way. And then the transcendent frequency, or the Siddhi of those, is communion. Communion, I guess I pronounce it like right, which is basically a coming together and sharing, just the energy of coming together. And no one needs to organize anything. Everyone will just be like feeling that sense of just celebrating that union or being together. And in that way, all of these different gene keys really create opportunities for contemplating, where is my energy? What state is it expressing in or out as? Is it, am I staying in that kind of shadow place where I feel that fear of being controlled and then I'm just trying to control, or are there some aspects of that synergy coming out? And that's a tool. I feel like that's a tool for observing your life, your tendencies, the way the energies flow, and it has been very helpful for me to really go through that process and just feel into these different sides, different frequencies, and build some acceptance also for an understanding for why I have these certain shadow tendencies or survival states that come up. And So it's a very gentle but intense journey in a way, or approach, and that's something I really appreciate about it. I'm also a person who is fascinated when there's something that's like paradoxical in a way, that it's both very transformative and powerful, but also has this layer of gentleness, and take it as you are, take it as you choose, and do with it what you do. But it is maybe more for people who want to have that freedom or independence, that it provides a framework for, but the way you use it or move through that, that's up to you. And that's also requires a level of being able to really feel into your states, or if you're ready to move on, or if you need to stay with something and contemplate something for a bit longer. And at the same time, everyone can, even if it's a messy process, or if you would do it, there's no doing it wrong, I guess. So that could also work, to just go quickly through everything, get everything in your head, and then maybe after that you would have a time period of, okay, like now I'm going to process. So it's very individual how you would want to do it. For me, it was like 1 month or more for one of these gene keys. And then sometimes I would go faster when I felt like, okay, I already have that in me, or understand that, or feel that. Then I would move a bit faster. So it depends. Yeah. So that's something that was so fascinating and transformative and meaningful in my life. So I actually decided to also do the whole guide training, to be a Gene Keys guide. So I could also share about it, and talk with people who have a challenging time through the journey. My main motivation for that was that at times, when particularly in the Venus sequence, I felt like, oh, it would be really nice to be able to just chat with someone about this, but I also didn't really feel like it was really tender at the time. I didn't have time, or didn't feel like I had time to search out for those things. So I thought maybe if I could be a guide, that was my motivation, was to, I would really love to be able to provide that kind of opportunity for someone else who is in a state of maybe feeling a bit stuck with their some kind of shadow, or not knowing how to work with it, and then just provide a space where they could be, get an opportunity to go deeper into that, and into the ease, and practice the whole contemplative approach of it, where things kind of just fall into their place at their own time. So I really felt really called to pursue this guide training, also because with human design, I haven't always felt so sure to do that, to do the whole process of becoming like a living your design guide, certified. I've done my human design reading so far more like free form. I have a lot of education in it. I'm quite confident in my ability to communicate it. But there was a time when I didn't resonate with the whole way it's structured, that it was described in the on the website of the International Human Design School, that you shouldn't combine any other knowledge systems or frameworks with human design, because it's already consisting of so many things. While in the guide, the information about becoming a guide in the Gene Keys, I saw that it was much more open, and there was even encouraged to use your other talents and skills in combination with this, because it is a synthesis, and in that way we can build upon it. Of course, maybe not in a way that it's going to be too scattered and all over the place, that you still want to get some depth into it, that it has a point where you're combining things in a certain way. But I really felt it really resonated with me, the way that the approach of the Gene Keys was presented, and that affords a lot of creativity or openness. But there are also different systems. I've come to the realization that actually maybe for human design it makes sense to keep it like, okay, just focus here, because it is dense with information. It's so many rabbit holes you would go into there. Maybe there it actually does make sense to keep it a lot more like, yeah, if you want to have the certification, then that means you can really go deep into these things and maybe keep the other things on the side. Like, okay, yeah. And in the Gene Keys, because it's structured differently, more maybe open-ended, or how to say it, there is maybe space to do that kind of synthesis or combining things in a bit of a different way. So yeah, that's something I'm excited about, and that's gonna open up this journey with the Gene Keys for me in a very different way, where in addition to me still kind of feeling excited, or that's not the right word, feeling more like a calm support. I'm feeling that the joy of having that framework as a support in the background that I can go into when I have some sudden shadow stuff coming up, and I have learned that approach of contemplating and pausing instead of rushing on and having to find the answer. I can let the answer show itself in a different way. And for my own life, my personal life, it makes me feel a bit calmer to have that. Actually, we all need to find whatever it is, like our own support systems, or if it's not just like in systems like this, but other people or communities. And well, Gene Keys is also a community, but for me it's also in the whole journey itself, there's some kind of support I can feel, because I am a person who is maybe more in this inward facing. I'm really feeling that relationship with that, the energies themselves, and of course with other people you see them expressed too. So in that way, my journey, I have that in the background, but then I feel like that also affords me the space to, I have it in my own life in the background, and I have more space to then sit down and meet with someone else, and then hopefully be able to guide them on their own journey, but in a way that just gives them the opening to do it in the way that's right for them. And yeah, so that's a bit about the Gene Keys journey, and a bit of comparisons to human design. I also realized, like in the last video I talked about human design, I think I really didn't go into all of the aspects that it's made up of. So I wanted to, at least, if there are some people who listen to many of my episodes, then they can hear like a more complete description here. Because I think I only mentioned the chakra system and the astrology and the I Ching, but both of these systems have underpinnings of like a combination of modern science plus these older ancient systems. So human design has been built up of a chakra system, which inspires the way that the centers of the body graph are made up, and the astrological wheel is like at the very background, that kind of, you put the planets and the different luminaries on that in place there, that bring the energy into the body graph or into your system. But then a big part of it is actually the whole idea of neutrino streams. That how is the energy coming from the planets? How is it actually hitting us or the Earth? And in human design, then they use that description of the neutrinos that filter different planetary energies, filter um, through the neutrino stream, and then we are directly hit in different parts by them in the moment we're born, and all the time by these transits. which is pretty fascinating stuff, but nothing I've been able to go look deeper into at this point myself. And then there's also between the I Ching and, yeah, in the I Ching, if you know this Chinese ancient system, which consists of 64 different descriptions of energies or ways of acting, and they are in turn divided into like 6 subcategories, then that has been connected to the DNA sequence, which also has this whole numerical, this whole setup of 64 divided to 6. And that's just, for me, I'm not a DNA scientist or studying neutrinos. For me, what I think of when I see these kinds of correspondences in use is, I just think it's such a fascinating use of, in a way, maybe storytelling or connecting together elements to see like, oh, how can we play with this? How can we use this and create something from it? And so, as I said in the last video, I'm quite a skeptic, to be honest, like, because I don't know, I cannot prove for myself, and it's maybe a bit of my own materialist, uh, scientific materialist background still, like, whispering in my ear that since I'm not able to prove any of those things myself, or how it works with astrology, like how does it really feel like these energies come and affect us at certain times, I can't explain it or prove it, but I can still experiment with it and play with it. And I've come to the understanding for myself in my own life that it actually just makes it a bit more fun or interesting, or opens up a whole new dimension that I can experiment with and play with. And that's valid enough. And that can be maybe offensive for someone who's like, oh, it has to make sense, has to be exactly like this way, have to prove it in a that kind of materialist framework. But I don't need to do that. I'm pragmatic. Even I'm skeptical, I have that pragmatic side that's like, this has been so meaningful for me. This has opened up different perspectives, and it's fun. It's expanded my life in different ways. So, yeah, that's good enough for me, and I'm gonna work with it. And who knows, maybe those things will be proven someday in some way. My approach to it is a playful one. My approach is from a more storytelling, life as a game kind of perspective, where we can play just with also knowledge or different perspectives. And I accept that. My role is to play with it and to show how we can treat life with lightness, while we're also serious about it in the ways that we want to be serious about it, playfully serious. So there's a lot of fascinating stuff combined there into these systems, and the Gene Keys then is focused fully on this whole I Ching slash DNA sequence. So it talks a lot about, it provides its own perspective of its own version, its own explanation to, for example, junk DNA and these kinds of things that I thought was really funny and interesting to read about in those courses. That there's like junk DNA has been overlooked and seen as like, because we don't understand it, we see it as trash or like junk, as the name says. But what if that's just like so much power that's locked in somewhere that we haven't been able to access because it's been more in the unconscious levels or maybe ancestral levels? And then by learning about it and looking into it, maybe it comes to light. That's pretty interesting perspective, I thought. But of course, it's all perspective, different lenses to play with, like most of science is. It's a hypothesis until it's, well, proven, or yeah. So I feel quite done for now. And as is always the case with when I've recorded these ramblings, I often feel like right after I recorded it, I realize like, oh, I forgot that. Oh, why didn't I talk about those things? And I presented human design in the wrong way because I didn't talk about the neutrinos and the DNA. But whatever comes up in the moment is what's meant to come up in the moment, and what's complete and perfect anyway. It's all a part of that ongoing flow of expressions, or at least that's what this podcast is. And that's gonna hopefully take some pressure off it and add more pleasure into it instead. So in the end, I have to practice doing more of these calls to action. That's an ongoing challenge for me. So I would love to invite you, if you feel called to connect with me, or even just chat about these things, or share your view, or if you find it offensive or provocative, the views I have, like, yeah, feel free to comment and share what you want to add to the world, to this flow of expressions. Or if you find it fascinating or want to just take part in that, or bring your own view to support this expression, that's up to you. But I had fun to get these things out and express something that I still wanted to express and share how meaningful it has been. But that's me, that's my journey, and everyone has their own. I am a geek by heart who goes deep into things and who is fascinated by these kinds of frameworks and things that create portals and fractal systems from connecting different weird things in weird ways that open up for something new, or a new way to see yourself and the world. That's at the core of why I'm so fascinated by these frameworks. With that said, I can always see that risk of someone who maybe doesn't have that same open approach that I do getting stuck in a more dogmatic stance, like, oh, this is telling me I'm like this, and that's now I'm locked into this way of being, and that could be harmful. But there's always risks in life, and risks are also possibilities to transform and learn something that can be challenging but in the end meaningful. That's so much matters, so much depending on how you approach things, how you view things, and that's why I want to bring more of this playfulness, because that takes that pressure off in life overall. Let's play and experiment just for the fun of it, or just for satisfying that childish sense of curiosity.